Hello, my name is Wangashi and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be answering the questions that I got via Instagram. I asked beginner bakers if they had any questions and I did get a few, so I'm going to be answering those in this video. I'm going to answer as many questions as I possibly can. One of the questions that was asked a lot was in regard to cake pricing. And if you haven't seen those videos, it's a series that's currently ongoing on my channel. And so I'm going to leave a card up here. You can click on it. I'll also leave a link in the description box so you can go through the two videos that are currently up. First question. What size of baking tins do you use for 1 kg and 2 kg cake respectively? And how many tins for each, I guess? For 1 kg cake, I usually use an 8-inch tin. And if I'm doing in an 8-inch tin, I'm going to use 2 baking pans. But if I want just a normal height cake, maybe 3 or 4 inches. But if I want a tall cake, I'm going to use 4 6-inch tins, so my cake can be taller, or 3 7-inch tins. So it depends on the design that I want to do. With a 2 kg cake, on the other hand, I'll use a 10-inch tin if I just want a 3 or 4-inch high cake. And if I want a tall cake, maybe 6 inches, I'm going to do 4 8-inch tins. So yeah, 1 kg 8-inch or 6-inch, 2 kg 10-inch or 8-inch. But then again, it depends on the design and what the client wants. How do I make the right consistency when writing on cakes? For that, I'd just say it's practice makes perfect. Eventually, you'll figure out what works for you. For example, for me, I prefer to write with buttercream, but there are people who use chocolate to write or ganache. With that, I would just say practice makes perfect. Eventually, you'll figure out what works for you. I find chocolate too hard to work with to write because you can't wait for it to cool down. You have to use it warm. But then, if it's too warm, it chicanas. What's the proper term? It spreads a little, and then what you were looking for doesn't come out. So that's practice, trial and error until you figure out what works for you. Buttercream, ganache, chocolate, until you figure it out. You just have to keep practicing. How do I prevent scraping off too much frosting, buttercream or whipping cream? The best advice I would give with this is ensure your crumb coat your crumb coat is completely dry. With buttercream, I always let my cake, after I crumb coat it, sit in the fridge for 15 to 30 minutes so it's dry. And with whipping cream, I let it sit for about an hour or more so that that first coat can set completely before I add the next one. Once you do that, when the cake is cold, while you're scraping off, it smoothens faster because the cake is cold, and the cream is also dry, the first coat. So while you're scraping off, you don't need to do too much work. Or alternatively, you can do what I prefer to do nowadays, which is do 3 coats instead of 2. And that usually helps me with, when I do my first crumb coat, it's extremely thin, you can see completely inside. My second coat, that's just because I will end up scraping quite a decent amount. I also let that dry completely. So now when I add my third thin coat, my cake doesn't need too much cream on it. And also, the third coat means when I'm scraping off, there's no cake being seen inside from the top coat. So yeah, those shadows that you usually see when you're scraping off buttercream. So practice makes perfect. Eventually you'll figure out what works for you. Some people prefer to put a thick layer of buttercream using a piping bag, so when they're scraping, they don't scrape off more than they need to. They can know when to stop. So just keep practicing until you figure out what works for you. Can you replace butter with oil? Yes, you can, but at the same time, it depends on the recipe. So when you substitute the butter with oil, number one thing that's going to definitely change is the taste of the cake. Texture of the cake might change as well. So before you do that for a client especially, just be sure if you replace completely, it's going to work out. Especially substituting butter with oil completely changes texture and taste of a cake. And also remember, oil doesn't contain salt. So you will have to adjust your recipe accordingly to give your cake a taste that's cake tasting, because it will end up being, you'll always notice unasikianga kuna kitu ina miss, but sometimes you don't know what it is, especially. So just try, if you do replace, add a bit of salt, like a pinch of salt, an eighth of a teaspoon ish, so you can tell. Yeah, my oven is gas flame and sound have temp dial. How do I bake with it? I'm assuming you meant right and doesn't have temp dial. How do I bake with it? Well, that's going to be a bit difficult since I don't see how you could set the temperature. But what you can do is just get an oven thermometer, and then when you switch on your oven, well, the thermometer is there. Once it reaches 180, you can mark on the outside the dial where 180 is, because it's not, if it doesn't have a temperature dial, I don't think you can use it without an oven thermometer. Yeah. Oh, this one's a compliment. Thank you for always replying to our messages and guiding us through this baking journey. You're more than welcome. I will try my best to keep doing so. Where do you buy your baking pans? To be honest, several places. Depends on what I'm looking for, how many pans I want to buy. Jua Kali always comes through because they're cheap. You can get quite a few for a good deal. But my biggest disadvantage with Jua Kali tins is just one. When those things fall, they lose shape. And that's why you see currently, most of the times when I'm baking, I always trim, before I decorate, I trim off the sides, the edges, because my tins, well, yeah, I can tell this is an 8-inch tin, but because they've dropped while storing quite a few times, you can tell they're losing shape. So I'll use the same 8-inch tin across for like 4 tins, but when the cake bakes, they don't look like they're the same size, yet they are. That's the biggest disadvantage I have with Jua Kali tins. But they work, they're cheap, you can get a lot for a very small price. So, or what, those Facebook groups, like those expert groups, just check them out. Sometimes they do have baking things for sale when experts are leaving the country, or even us when we're migrating elsewhere. I just started my YouTube channel. How do I gain traffic? With that one, I don't know. I guess for me, it was just I guess lucky break, because I have no idea what happened. I know when I did a video with Wabosha, that's when I gained my first 1,000 followers. And then after that, my consistency went this way. And then the entirety of 2019, I was not in the mood to film. And then for some reason in 2019, my channel just went from like 1,000 to 3,000 subscribers, yet I was doing nothing. But that one video, the strawberry cake, the strawberry cake recipe was just going, it went from like 400 views to 200,000 views, just like all of a sudden, yet I was not even checking my YouTube channel. I was completely burnt out from work, filming, doing everything I usually do. So I would say gain traffic. Just figure out what it is you want to post. Try as much as you can to be consistent. And in my experience, post things that are actually true. Like for me, when I started, it was just genuinely recipe videos. And my my goal is to try my best to never post something I would never use. So you can ask some of the people I've taught. Sometimes I don't have the recipe offhand and my printer is not working. So I just go back to my YouTube channel and check the recipe, and we use that to bake. So yeah, don't post something you can't use. Just figure out your niche. Is it recipes? Is it follow along recipes? Is it stocking recipes? Or whatever. Doesn't have to be recipes. Whatever it is your niche is, just figure it out, but don't post something. That's my advice. Do not post something that you would never use. Just make sure, be truthful. So yeah, and then tell your family and friends. Me, my biggest marketers are my family members and nieces and nephews, kids of my friends. Yeah, just word of mouth goes a long way, but the biggest way to gain traffic is always post the real thing, something that you would comfortably use, something that you would tell other people to go check and use. How long does your cake take to bake in an oven? Mine takes more than 40 minutes. With that, one, you can get an oven thermometer and confirm when you set your oven at 180. It might not be at 180, and that's why it's taking longer to bake. Like the inside temperature might not be 180, and hence the reason why it takes longer to bake. That's one. Two, your cake mix might be too thin or too thick, hence the reason why it takes longer to bake. On the too thin side, it will take, because ni maji, it takes longer. And if it's too thick, the density, I guess it has something to do with the density and temperature. So it takes longer. And you might notice ata ikiiva when you take it out it looks like ugali, or like it's undercooked, especially at the center, but when you insert a knife, it's clean. But two things I would advise you to do, if you're only using one baking pan, what you can do is put grease-proof paper longer than the baking tin. So if your tin is 3 inches tall, yeah, put baking paper that's 4 or 5 inches tall. So your cake, that helps the cake have more room to rise in. And with that, it will bake better. Option 2 that I would always prefer is baking 2 or 3 pans. It takes a short amount of time, and you're always guaranteed your cake is going to bake evenly and quickly. Do I teach? That's another question that's asked a lot on. Yes, I do teach, but currently I'm not teaching because pandemic. Oh, another compliment. Not a pro baker, but I owe all skills to you. I truly appreciate it. Okay, thank you. That one made me confused. Thank you. I appreciate the feedback. I appreciate the comment. It's made my day. And genuinely, thank you. But I don't think you owe all your skills to me. I am grateful to help you with your journey and be more confident with yourself. You do owe all your skills to yourself, not to me. Not a beginner, but how do you deal with frustrations when decorating cakes? When you are decorating cakes and they don't turn out as expected. When I started baking, I dealt with frustrations by crying, because what else can I possibly do? And as I said, I don't know if I mentioned it in my previous video, I'm an overthinker and kind of a perfectionist. So if what's here doesn't come out while decorating, I panic a lot. My heart beats too fast. So in the beginning, I used to deal with it by crying, genuinely. But then now I'm at that point for hata nikilia keki haitadekoretiwa. So now I deal with my frustrations sometimes via sleep. So if it's completely refusing, just take a moment, breathe. If you have to sleep, sleep. If you have to watch TV, watch TV. If you have to cry, cry. Do something, like take a breather, and then when you relax, come back to it. Because sometimes you are exhausted, you're burnt out, but you can't tell. So yeah, just take a moment, take a breather, and see if it works out. Alternatively, if you're like me and you're scared of disappointing people, disappointing a client, what I would advise is, if you're unsure if it's come out the way you wanted, send a photo to your client. Because sometimes we do overthink, we do overthink what the cake looks like, but it's not as bad as we think. Sometimes it's just all in your head. So if it's complete and you're not happy with it, send a photo to the client. Sometimes the client might be the one who sees what's missing, or send to a friend, like a baker friend. Like I know me and my friend, we send each other photos, and sometimes I ask her, do you think something's missing? Sometimes if they do not know, sometimes a client might have wanted a simple cake, or I've sent an incomplete cake. So they do ask, was there inspiration? So when I send them, they will advise me, hey, you didn't do ABCD, so can you maybe change here or there? So find someone you can be asking questions, a friend of yours, someone you know will give you honest feedback. And alternatively, just send to the client. Sometimes we are overthinking a lot. So when you send to your client, depending on what feedback they tell you, if you're doubting yourself, take a breather, ask a friend, or just send to the client. They might be able to give you better feedback or a better answer than I would in this video. But number one, always take a breather. That 1 hour of sleep might recharge you, so you stop doubting yourself in the moment. Yes. Did you struggle with getting clients when you started? What do I do to keep practicing, even with no orders? When I look back, I wouldn't say I struggled getting clients, because one, I didn't think I was going to be baking for as long as I ended up baking for. I just got lucky that I ventured into business and just... here I am now. Did I struggle getting clients? Me? No. Because one, I was still in uni when I started baking. So I had friends ordering cupcakes, and then that's how I moved from cupcakes to cakes to weddings to teaching. Yeah. And word of mouth worked best for me, because it started with how did I start getting clients? Luckily for me, I got a stand at Blankets and Wine back in 2012. Was it? Yeah, in 2012. I started there selling cakes, cupcakes, samosas, etc. at Blankets and Wine. Got clients from there. My sister worked in an office. I was in campus. So I got lucky client-wise. So I grew via word of mouth then. And then I used to look out for like events that I could have a stand at. And that's how I grew. How do you keep practicing without orders? That is not hard. Just get styrofoam and practice on styrofoam. Do designs on styrofoam. Take photos, peel off. And yeah, so practice is easy. You can just do, like if it's piping, you can practice piping on a board, on a plate, on a table. Decorating styrofoam and empty baking tin as sufuria. Anything works. So just practice. Can someone make a 1.5 kg 2-tier cake? Yes, but it will be so tiny. So just use an 8-inch baking pan down and a 6-inch pan up, or 6 and 4. It will just be tiny. So yeah, the answer is yes, but it will be small. What do you frost your cakes with mostly? I use buttercream most of the time. Why? Reason? Because it's easy to do a lot of designs with buttercream. And yeah, if I was to pick, I would go buttercream, fondant, then whipping cream. The reason whipping cream is the bottom is there's only so much you can do with whipping cream. So I do whipping cream cakes, but very few currently. Mainly buttercream cakes for me. I prefer buttercream. They're very easy to do, quick one. I can do many designs with it. It can be as tidy as fondant. Next is fondant. I'm 50-50 with fondant because one, love fondant because of how tidy it is. Hate fondant because of how much work it is, how messy it is, like your kitchen, your face, your hair, and the frustrations of fondant. But also buttercream has a few of its own frustrations, but not as bad as fondant. Will whipping cream frosting for a wedding cake melt? For all the ones that I've done, no, nothing has ever happened, luckily. I guess the answer is just the same way as using ganache. Don't put it in direct sunlight. if you do use whipping cream, buttercream, or even fondant, whatever you use for your ganache fondant, for your wedding cake, just put it down on your contract. You're not liable, one, for such a mishap. Two, the client has to provide a study structure. So just advise them, like, because if it's an outside wedding, they should ensure the cake where it's placed, it's not going to be directly where the sun is going to be shining. So for that, it does not melt, but here, I use non-dairy whipping cream for such things. So they're a bit more stable and they've never melted on me. But do tell your client to make sure they provide, like the tent should be one where the sun does not actually heat the cake itself. And two, it's not put, like if it's an indoor wedding where the cake is going to be, it's not like a hot spot. How do I increase sales and followers on social media? Followers on social media, I don't know, but the biggest way to increase followers is tell a friend to tell a friend. When you sell to a client, you can put on your branding, your boxes, your social media pages, or the best way I would say is consistency. Just post nice photos, post consistently, because the more people see your work, the more followers you do get. How do I increase sales? To increase sales, just like in any business, do honest work, do quality work, and because I find my biggest marketing strategy is word of mouth. So if I do a good job, most of my new clients are referrals from a friend, like a client told a friend to buy from me. So always do a good job, like on it. If you can't execute a job, don't do it, I think. So yeah, to increase your sales, just do honest work. How to charge your cakes? People tell me I underprice mine and I need help. For the underpricing, yes. If you follow the series that I've been posting, your answer will be there. How to get the right customer? My cheapest cake is 1500 na bado anasema too high. Well, in my honest opinion, 1500 is too low. So what I would say with that is how to get the right. Everyone has their pocket. Everyone has their standard. Everyone has what they go for. I wouldn't go low because one person has told me 1500 is too high. So how do you get the right client? The right client will come to you. Just stick to your standard. Stick to what you know. Do a good job. So, because if you're selling at a loss just to make someone happy, some clients ni kukusumbua tu. It's not that you're too high. They just don't want to give you what you're worth. So everyone think of it this way. This is the best example I can give. Back when we could go to the mall, like a mall, the food court, you'd find Pizza Inn, there's a Chinese restaurant, there's a burger place at Cafe Java. Depending on your pocket, you always went to where you and your family could afford. You never go to Art Cafe to eat a plate of fries that goes for 400 shillings, and then after you've sat down and want to order, start telling the waiters and waitresses, hey, at Sanford, they do sell fries at, I might be wrong, at 120 shillings. So why are you guys selling yours at 400? If my pocket reaches Sanford price, I always go to Sanford. If I have money to buy at Cafe, I will eat at Cafe. So the client will come to you. We don't go asking at Cafe or Java or Hemingway's to discount the prices because we know another person who sells at a cheaper price. Just don't minimize your worth just for one person. Just stick to where you are. Eventually, it might take time, but you will get someone who's willing to pay what you sell for what you're selling without hurting you and your business. Do you know any bakery or cake shops that are hiring? No, I do not. But hey, if you're a baker and you are looking for an assistant or an employee, Miss Mutindi is looking for another compliment. No question at the moment, just appreciating you and your work. Thank you. Where did you study baking? I went to Cakes and Cakes back in 2012, but then I also studied in the School of YouTube and Google. What size of baking tins do you use for 1 kg cake? Because I see you usually pour your butter into 2 tins. If I'm pouring in 2 tins, I'm using an 8-inch tin. Next question, the decorating part is eating me up. Not easy. Also, measurements, what quantities make a 1 kg, 2 kg, etc. I'll answer the second part first. What quantities make a 1 kg cake? For that, what you have to do, to know if it's a 1 kg cake, when you add in grams, butter, sugar, flour, eggs, etc., they usually end up adding up to between 800 and 1,000 grams. Excuse me. So that's a 1 kilo cake. 2 kg, double the recipe to get a 2 kg cake. But that's before baking. After baking, I don't weigh my cakes because I know they will be over. The decorating part is not easy. Again, practice makes perfect. It takes a while and some time. How do you get your family to support your business? For this one, I don't think there's something I did for them to support my business. I'm just honestly lucky to have the family I have. They're very supportive. I'm lucky enough because even my friends and extended family are very supportive. So for me, I'm just lucky. There's nothing I personally did for them to start supporting. I just come from a very supportive circle because my immediate family is supportive, my extended family is supportive, my friends are supportive. So I'm very lucky and blessed to have those people around me. But one thing I would say, how to start getting them to be supportive, is show them that you're genuinely interested in something. Because sometimes it might just look like a hobby. Show them that you're willing to do this. Because sometimes, most times, maybe people are skeptical about how you would do. And also sometimes, that I've come to learn, most people don't think this can be a career because they don't know. Even me when I was starting, I know my dad was still telling me to look for a job because when I finished campus, he was telling me to look for a job, an internship, because baking doesn't pay. But now I don't think, even when he hears me looking for a job, I think he would be concerned because he knows this can be lucrative. He's seen me grow. He would even tell someone to start, do something. So I guess sometimes it's not that they don't want to support you. It's because they don't know better. They don't know if this can be a career. So until they see someone doing it. So show them how interested you are. And sometimes it just takes a leap of faith because maybe your family, they have never heard of someone who's doing something in that industry and became as a lucrative business. So it just take one step. They will eventually support however they can. Thank you so much for the questions. I hope I have answered all of them to your satisfaction. And yes, I will see you in the next one. Thank you. Bye.